Welcome to News Laundry Chhota Hafta. For the full episode, subscribe because it is behind the paywall and only subscribers get access to uncut, complete content. News Laundry Hafta is our weekly wrap of all that made the news, all that didn't, and all that should have and all that shouldn't have. We agree, we disagree, we critique, and occasionally we beat each other up. But it's all good fun. Subscribe.
This is a News Laundry podcast and you're listening to NL Hafta.
अंग्रेज अपना लगान और न्यूज़ लॉन्ड्री अपना हफ्ता कभी नहीं छोड़ते. I'm Abhinandan Sekhri and I'm back on the hafta after a very rewarding trip to London, and not rewarding because of the conference or anything else, although I'm grateful that they invited me. I shall tell you a little more about that. But for the subscriber meet over there, I think about 35 or maybe 40 subscribers showed up, and they were most amazing. We have such a phenomenal community of people who support us. So thank you all for making the trip. Many of you made a trip from pretty far away, and it was an absolute pleasure meeting you. I hope I could answer all your questions. I wish we had more time, but I may be coming there again. We'll plan a bigger meet, and this time I hope we will have the budget to, have a little brunch or something for all of you. And we will have that budget if you can convince 3 people each to subscribe as well, because we don't take any ads. But thank you all so much. I will tell you more about that. But first, let me introduce the panel and get the headlines on this hafta. In the office, we have Raman Kirpal. Hello, sir.
Hi.
Manisha Pande.
Hello.
Joining us on the phone line is our wonderful Jayashree from Chennai. Hi, Jayashree.
Hi.
And joining us from the outskirts of Delhi, near Dadri, as Professor Jacob has informed me, is Jabin Thomas Jacob. Hi, Jabin.
Hi.
So, Dr. Jacob is an associate professor at the Department of International Relations and Governance Studies at the Shiv Nadar University. He was formerly fellow and assistant director at the Institute of Chinese Studies, Delhi, and associate editor of the journal China Report. He holds a PhD in Chinese Studies from the School of International Studies, JNU. His research interests include Chinese domestic politics, China-South Asia relations, Sino-India border areas, India and Chinese worldview, and center-province relations in China. He is also the author of the following books, which you should pick up if you want to learn more about China. The first is China and its Neighborhood, Perspectives from India and Vietnam. And the second is India's Foreign Policy, Old Problems, New Challenges. So, can I call you Jabin?
Yes, please.
Okay. Or are you called Thomas or are you called Jacob? What do most people call you?
Jabin is good enough.
So, Jabin, this India's Foreign Policy, Old Problem, New Challenge, when did you write this?
So that's a very old book. That's over a decade old. So I have a much newer book, which is on China's search for national rejuvenation. This came out a couple of years ago. This is the latest one.
Right.
So I've sort of switched, I'm moving more closely to the study of Chinese domestic politics, which is really what my PhD was on. But, bread and butter is always India-China relations.
And
so one has to wear both
what
hats.
sparked your interest in China, for it to reach a PhD level?
Oh, okay. So, that, as a child, I saw a map. I saw that everyone talks about Pakistan, but there's this big territory to the north of India. Sometimes it's Tibet, sometimes it's Tibet, China in brackets, sometimes it's China, Tibet in brackets. I was wondering why nobody talked about it. So that's how I got interested. Wanted to do something that others weren't doing. Wanted to be different, I suppose.
I see. So welcome to the Hafta. We will get into the discussion because we have a bunch of questions on China, which is in the news for all sorts of reasons. While I understand your PhD is from the India perspective and the regional power play perspective, I would also like you to weigh in on, since I just heard the podcast yesterday, Economist had on the impending recession coming and how China has a big part to play in it. I was wondering if you have a view on that, but we'll come to that a little later. Let's get the headlines from Jayashree first.
Yeah. The External Affairs Ministry has confirmed that China is building a second bridge on the Pangong Tso Lake. The ministry said the government, in response, was creating infrastructure along border areas. Rahul Gandhi has criticized this as timid. Meanwhile, Quad leaders, that is US, Japan, Australia, and India, met in Tokyo at the second in-person summit. An all-party meeting will be chaired by Bihar Chief Minister Nitish Kumar to discuss the modalities to conduct a state-level caste census. This is quite significant. A Delhi court on Wednesday sentenced Yasin Malik to life imprisonment and imposed a fine of rupees 10 lakhs after he was convicted in a terror funding case. Mobile internet was suspended in Kashmir after the verdict, and the Gupkar Alliance has called the sentencing unfortunate and a setback to peace efforts. Also in Kashmir, a TV artist was killed allegedly by 3 LET terrorists. Her 10-year-old nephew was also injured. In an update on the Gyanvapi case, a plea to conduct prayers at the Shivling in the complex, the alleged Shivling in the complex, was transferred to a fast-track court. On Tuesday, the government imposed Section 144 in the vicinity of a mosque near Mangalore after the BHP claimed there was presence of Lord Shiva at the mosque. Telangana Chief Minister KCR was one of 3 chief ministers who gathered in Chandigarh on Sunday to pay tributes to those who died during the protests against the farm laws. He's also on a national tour, which I think he's resumed. In Punjab, the health minister, Dr. Vijay Singla, was sacked on corruption charges. He was also arrested. The Culture Ministry is considering conducting an iconography of the Hindu and Jain idols found in the Qutub Minar complex in Delhi. However, the ASI told a Delhi court that Qutub Minar is not a place of worship. Kapil Sibal has resigned from the Congress. He has also filed a Rajya Sabha nomination with the SP's backing. He said he thought it was time to move on. He did not want to hang on to the coattails of any party. And on its part, the Congress has formed a political panel and a task force in preparation for the 2024 elections. 20 BJP leaders in West Bengal have resigned from their posts. They've accused the district leadership of taking money in lieu of inducting members to a local panel. 6 more people have died in Assam. There's a total death toll of 24 due to the floods, and the flood situation has witnessed some marginal improvement. Vinay Kumar Saxena was appointed the Lieutenant Governor of Delhi. In Tamil Nadu, Junior Vikatan magazine has said a false complaint was filed against it. This is an FIR that was filed against it on charges of extortion. FIR was filed based on a complaint by a company that is believed to have ties to the DMK. And finally, in Texas, a teenage gunman has killed at least 19 children and 2 adults in a primary school in one of the deadliest school shootings in nearly a decade.
Right.
The big news you missed, though, that over the weekend on which we have a story, RSS's organizer in Panchania held awards and
journalism awards.
Some very
It's a beautiful story that Shiv has done.
Shefali Vaidya won the Art and Culture Award. Anand Ranganathan won the Social Media Award.
What is a social media award? For just
Being-
payloading stuff on
Well,
Twitter?
you used to tell
Journalist.
that he sits for 5 to 6 hours a day.
I don't know. I have no idea. But I don't know how much time. But chalo,
So-
theek hai. So the journalism awards going to Open India.
Palki of Vion also won. So,
Excellent.
Yeah, it was quite...
So, so journalism is going, as you can see, where it's going. And that's because as long as it is run under the patronage of large corporations through advertising or buyouts or through government advertising, which seems to be the staple of media in today's day and age, that is what you will call journalism. And organizations backed by the RSS will give it awards for journalism. If you want journalism to be a public service, you got to pay to keep news free, which I have been harping on for 12 years. Because when the public pays, the public is served. When corporations, governments pay, corporations and governments are served. So rather than just crib about the situation and how bad it's getting, put your money where your mouth is. 300 rupees a month is not that much. Go to newslaundry.com, click on the subscribe button and pay to keep news free. Or then wait for governments to fund journalism. And that's when journalism will fund only governments.
Plus, the other element of China's growth is, I mentioned before that it's come at some cost. So today, Chinese economists are trying to figure out, what was the cost to the environment? So if China was growing at 10%, the cost to the environment was about 1-2% of the GDP. There's this big deal made about how China has lifted several hundred million people out of poverty. But equally important or significant is the fact that China has also, by the nature of its growth, not paying attention to pollution, air pollution, soil pollution, water pollution, has also resulted in cancer for several hundred million people in China.
And no doubt climate refugees as well. I mean, I'm sure there'll be climate refugees, because of the kind of devastation.
So China actually suffers from very serious problems of flooding. This is actually an annual, historically it's a big deal. Emperors or empires fell and rose depending on the kind of work that they were able to do managing such natural disasters, which were always seen as punishment from heaven for a ruler ruling badly. So there is a sort of a connection between good, efficient governance and your staying power. Now, the thing about the Chinese the Chinese model is that they have, taken efficient governance to a higher level. Essentially, you can forget about democratic rights, civil rights, if the Chinese government is able to provide a basic quality of living to the Chinese people. So if you ask me, is there a threat? Of course, there's a threat. But
are they interested?
I mean,
is it just a threat we perceive, or are they interested in getting land? I mean, what is in it for them?
So we've seen, like, over the last couple of decades, we have increasingly come to know of the nibbling of territory that the Chinese have engaged in. Now, a lot of this nibbling has to do with them just finding better, shall we say, situation or sites from a military vantage point. This border is not. It's tough terrain. So it's not as if this line that is drawn across the map is actually a very sensible line to hold in terms of your military advantage or maintaining your reach in these areas. Some of it just doesn't make sense. It's just a random line in many areas. So a lot of it is sort of a rationalization, shall we say, all right? And this happens also on the Indian side. So it's not as if the Chinese infrastructure has not been met with responses on the Indian side. We've also been doing it, but obviously we are a couple of decades late in trying to catch up. In fact, one interpretation of all these clashes that have been taking place between the Indian and Chinese troops over the last couple of decades is essentially the result of our infrastructure having improved and us being able to access those areas on the map that we never used to access before.
Just to ask, like, what changed after 2013? If you're saying like there's a change in pattern and intensity, what is the cause of it? Or what is the thinking?
Two things. I mean, one, like I said, the infrastructure capacity of the Indians grew. Okay, by 2013, we were also beginning to access a lot of areas. And so the Chinese saw that their traditional advantages were slowly being eroded because the Indians were able to come into more areas that the Indians claimed. And we were equally aggressive and assertive in our position. So it's not as if the Indian army has not been reacting. So Indian army has also been doing its bit. But of course, both sides, in the sense, have been engaged in these confrontations. And in 2013, the Chinese said, well, we've got and of course, we have a new leader in China. Xi Jinping is seen as a much more assertive leader domestically. And one of the ways in which he's been trying to clean up the act of the Communist Party inside China. I mean, the Communist Party is extremely corrupt. And one of the things he said that he's going to clean the Augean stables, as it were. And, all leaders who try to sort of develop domestic legitimacy use foreign policy as one way, this extreme nationalism as one way to say that, look, I am your guy. I'm going to clean up the country and I'm going to raise China's profile in international politics. And simultaneously, there's been this feeling that the Indians are getting too close to the United States. Right. So for the Chinese, it's sort of become a very black and white world.
I mean, I've met several political leaders in my life. I'm not saying this as a political kind of comment, like with no political knowledge. Just, you have an instinct when you meet someone, this guy's going to do something. I'm talking instinct. Like the one I've known very well. Like Arvind, the first time I saw him speak in 2002, I was like, this guy's going to rock the world.'s going to do something. When I met Ramdev, it was clear that this guy has a charisma. He knows how to move. I mean, it was very clear to me this guy is something that can... With Rahul, you just don't get any such this thing. He may be a very good guy. For all he's brilliant. I don't know. He doesn't come across brilliant to me. It's a bit like Sohail Seth. Like Sohail Seth, when he sits, he talks very well, eloquently, with confidence, with the public school educated confidence. But you really listen to what he's saying, he's talking shit. Marketing is all about three things. Getting your word out there, being identifiable, connecting. These are such vague things. Like, what does this mean? So, even Rahul take these long pauses, and I was observing very closely. And they're asking that, are you there to lead the party for elections? Are you there as an ideologue? Are you there as a figurehead? And he'll come with something, leadership is all about ideas and support. I mean, I don't even know. Like,
did anyone ask whether he's a reluctant politician?
Yeah, they asked. So, I mean...
So what did he say? He just go into some vague territory.
Yeah, so you feel that you're with someone who will really not do anything in life. So, just instinctively, he's such a peaky chai. Yeah, also, I mean, I just think one specific, other than that instinctively, you're with this person has the X factor or not, is does the person ask questions? Like, for example, he's not unapproachable. It's not like, don't try to get close to Rahul, someone push you out. But he just walks around this benign smile, like this, smiling at you, and anyone who comes, he'll nod. He's not really engaged. Like, and I've seen a lot of these political, when they're close, someone comes to them, maybe it's rehearsed, maybe they're pretending, but they'll want to know, Acha, what happened? This, there's a conversation. he has nothing to ask anyone. It's like he already knows everything and he's just smiling and, spreading his Buddha-like glow. It's just, it is so thus, my God. It's,
Priyanka Gandhi has more personality than that.
Yeah, she does. Correct.
Apparently.
Apparently.
But then she's also not so visible. So it's easy to have a personality when you don't
good responses, reasonably much better.
No, there's no political
Some
instinct.
connection, yeah.
The day he was there, and there was someone else at the conference who said to me, 2 days ago, the young leader from Gujarat, Hardik Patel, had said that wo India mein to kabhi hote nahi. He's either in Europe or in London. Even for optics sake, did you have to go to London 2 days later? You're just, what a opportunity. Like a true politician would say, forget it, I'll cancel this trip.
See, but his optics have always been very suspect. Like that Faluda and badminton playing and Wayanad just around the election results. It's like he doesn't put any thought into how it will be presented to the media, and it looks terrible.
It's only the opposition parties that are pushing for the caste census. I know Akhilesh has, asked for it whenever he gets the chance and the opportunity, and he explains why. Now the ally Nitish Kumar is also saying it's important to discuss the modalities of the caste census, and he's pushing for the caste census. So one message it sends out is Nitish is saying that I'm not going to agree with everything BJP does or says. But why else is this important, Manisha?
So
Jayashree?
at least in the Uttar Pradesh elections, this was a huge demand, especially from OBC sections. And I was surprised to see that this was a political issue. And Akanksha had done a few stories also where she met villagers who said we want it done. Because the thing is also to relook at reservation. Once we know our numbers, then we can stake our claim. So that is a very important demand from especially OBC sections. And the government of India, I think to the Supreme Court had said that we don't want to conduct anything of this sort. There has been one census done already, but the data has just not come out.
It has been done, and the government hasn't revealed the data.
Back in 2011, I think.
11. And 21 also, I think they intend to do, but whether they're going to release it or not, we don't know about that. But the caste, I think the fact that since 1947 onwards, we have caste-based appointments and also, I think it becomes very important.
I think the data is important.
Data is important. Data is important. But politically speaking, I don't know, Abhi, when I used to cover elections, I have seen in, for instance, Bihar, which is completely caste-ridden. So I had gone to this Titler's house. Jagdish Titler was the Congress in charge of, Bihar way back. So I saw the list.
Correct.
How do they identify the leaders? So they have, say, one constituency. So they have all the caste numbers over there.
Yeah. In fact, they do that.
And then they pick up 5 candidates and they write their caste also.
And that happens still today. Now it's of course out in the open that ye kurmi hai to yahan ka leader hoga. Yahan
so each political party has got their own list.
They of course have that data. But
so I don't know politically how much. Maybe, you will be able to do a better politics when you have the official numbers.
All of you listening in, the Chhota Hafta, do subscribe so you can listen to the entire Hafta. We will see you again next week with the Hafta. Till then, subscribe, pay to keep news free, because when the public pays, the public is served. When advertisers pay, advertisers are served. Thank you. Goodbye.
All the News Laundry podcasts are available on Stitcher, iTunes, and any other podcast platform.
Please subscribe to News Laundry. Help us keep news independent. Catch all our podcasts on news, pop culture, current affairs and sport, visit newslaundry.com. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Sun liya Afrika, mufat khoro. Not to brag or anything, but News Laundry Hafta features in the top 50 in the world on SoundCloud in the news and politics category for podcasts. So do subscribe and see what you're missing. Because when the public pays, the public is served. When advertisers pay, advertisers are served. Subscribe, help keep news independent and free. All News Laundry podcasts are available on iTunes and Stitcher and any other podcast platform.